was or wasn't interested in the job. But Peter, of the 5 vacancies, for me, that probably would have been the one that I would have been the least interested in, because it just feels like that team is in the biggest state of flux and uncertainty right now.
He's an offensive coach. This was awesome. They've given tons of resources and money to the offense, and it's by far been the biggest disappointment with the football team.
Yeah, like Buddha said, in training camp, you could tell that maybe at times
A little relaxed.
it was a little too relaxed.
Yeah.
And training camp, that's when you really find out a lot about your team.
When I heard yesterday that Jonathan Gannon had been named head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, I just shook my head.
A lot of people did.
Hey! What's up, man? How you doing?
The Arizona Cardinals entered the 2022 NFL season with high expectations. Despite ending the previous season losing 4 of their last 5 games and getting blown out in the wild card game against division rival Los Angeles Rams, bookies still had Arizona around the 8 to 10 win range, with a lot of popular analysts predicting playoff appearances, runs, and on some occasions,
yes, they can win a Super Bowl with Kyler Murray this year.
There was no doubt that the Cardinals had a lot of talent on their roster. Rising quarterback Kyler Murray matched the 2021 rushing touchdown runner-up James Conner, top wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, former first-round pick Marquise Brown, and top tight end Zach Ertz, a young defense who allowed the 22nd most yards the previous season, a seemingly healthy franchise coming off of back-to-back 500 seasons. How did the Cardinals fall from grace so fast? The same can be said about the Rams or the Denver Broncos or even the Carolina Panthers, but after a bunch of avoidable and unfortunate events and dull strategies to combat them, the Cardinals take the title as the most dysfunctional franchise in the NFL.
And Murray barking his way over to the sideline.
You can see it right there.
Yep.
Since entering the league in 2019, Kyler Murray has shown great promise compared to other young NFL quarterbacks. Living up to number 1 pick expectations is always tough, but with Murray's constant improvements in several crucial statistics, along with 2 Pro Bowls and an Offensive Rookie of the Year on his belt, he had an early shot to do so. After 3 seasons, though, Kyler has not had that boom season or even a notable boom stretch, maybe one, where he is recognized among the best of the best in the NFL. For example, Trevor Lawrence's stretch from Week 9 to Week 18 in 2022 was fantastic, where he went 7-2 with 17 total touchdowns and 2 interceptions, leading his team to an AFC South title the season after finishing with the worst record in the league. Wins aren't particularly a quarterback statistic, but the season where wins mattered the most for Kyler was 2020, where a mediocre Cardinals team coming off a 5-10-1 season and low expectations for the next one went 8-8 behind Kyler. He hit the ground running in that season with 11 rushing touchdowns, including 10 in his first 8 games, but in that same stretch he threw 8 picks with 17 passing touchdowns and fumbled 4 times. So 27 total touchdowns with 8 interceptions and 4 fumbles, which while not a boom season, or really the biggest boom stretch, was still pretty decent. With another season-wide improvement the next season, the front office pulled the trigger on Kyler, giving him a massive 5-year, $230.5 million extension after several reported disputes about contract value and guarantees. With the 4th highest deal and the 3rd highest AAV, many questioned the return that Arizona would be receiving. In fact, after Kyler signed the contract, details revealed that an independent study addendum was included in the contract, basically confirming the work ethic that Kyler brings off the field. The clause required him to watch 4 hours of film a week by himself with no distractions, including playing video games, which I'll get to in a moment. Long story short, after heavy amounts of controversy and sarcasm from the clause, the Cardinals removed it from his contract. Kyler Murray is also a big fan of Call of Duty, which has been the center of nearly all of Kyler's critiques and the source of the independent study clause. Somehow, self-proclaimed NFL analysts have created advanced statistics to show the impact that Call of Duty has on Kyler's game, including a decrease in play on double XP weekends and a fall in season production after a new COD release. With an offseason full of controversy and coming directly off of the new extension, Kyler debatably played his worst season and he tore his ACL in his Week 14 game against the New England Patriots. According to Ian Rappaport, he may not recover enough to start the 2023 season, and recovering from a torn ACL is extremely difficult. If his play continues like this, the extension could possibly be one of the worst in football. Yet, the play may not be entirely his fault. After Steve Wilks put together a 3-13 season in his first season as Arizona's head coach, the front office fired him and looked towards a new hire. After searching for just over a week, so basically having a new coach on deck, the Cardinals hired Texas Tech coach Cliff Kingsbury. The one appealing characteristic about Kingsbury was his ability to develop quarterbacks very well, especially with Patrick Mahomes lighting up the entire league that past season. With the Cardinals selecting Kyler only 3 months later, the hire somewhat made sense, but yet all-around coaching was a massive gap. Texas Tech was fourth in offensive efficiency while Kingsbury was there, but his total record was only 35-40 with only 2 winning seasons. Defense was a problem with him as head coach, making the defensive coordinator hire extremely important. They ended up hiring recently fired Broncos head coach Vance Joseph, who went 11-21 at Denver's head coach. Joseph remained defensive coordinator until the Cardinals released him from his contract about a week ago. That's outside the point, though. Kyler did develop under Kingsbury, but after a fall in production and a significant injury, Kingsbury was blamed and fired. On paper, the fire may seem inevitable due to the business that the NFL is, but the firing should have happened a long time ago. AZ Central writer Jeremy Clough wrote in 2021, the Arizona Cardinals coach Cliff Kingsbury came under fire several times this season for some of his play calling and decision making. The criticism surrounding the coach only increased during the team's late season struggles and after the Cardinals finished the season 8-8, narrowly missing the NFL playoffs. He also cited that Cardinals fans mentioned with the improvement in record throughout his first 2 seasons, his job should be secure. And while the improvement in record is significant, and he did last 2 more seasons in Arizona, many believe that his tenure should have ended a long time before. After a blowout loss to the 49ers in Mexico City, Shannon Sharpe sounded off on the Cardinals on Undisputed, citing the lack of effort and giving up as a primary reason for players to get cut and Cliff Kingsbury to be fired at that moment. Of course, they dumped Kingsbury at season end, but the unfathomable play coming from Arizona should have given the front office reason to fire him mid-season. While a 4-13 season was unexpected, especially with the consistent improvement of record, digging deep into Arizona's franchise, Kingsbury should have been gone a long time ago.
Former UTEP head coach Sean Kugler is no longer with the Arizona Cardinals. He was an offensive line coach for the team, but following the team's loss to San Francisco in Mexico City Monday night, Kugler was fired by the Cardinals. ESPN reporting that Kugler was fired after he allegedly groped a woman in Mexico City Sunday night.
Speaking of the Mexico City game, 2 days following the blowout loss, Cardinals offensive line coach Sean Kugler was fired after Mexican officials told the organization that he groped a woman. Immediately after hearing about the incident, with no investigation, which will be important to note, the Cardinals sent him packing. This incident was not the first time an Arizona coach was fired for assaulting a woman this season, as former running backs coach James Saxon turned himself in for the same reasons in May. Now, nothing about this controversy has been proven true, but it is worth noting to discuss the dysfunction of this franchise. Less than a month later, now former Cardinals GM Steve Keim took a leave of absence, citing health concerns as his reason for stepping away. This was Keim's second time stepping away from GM, as the first time he was suspended after being charged with a DUI. To seal the deal, Keim stepped away for good after the 2022 season. Now, as I said, none of this is proven true, and I wish Keim quick recoveries, but this situation is a little bit odd. Here's a picture of Keim. And here's a picture of Kugler. Very similar looks to them, honestly. A while after the firing, Kugler spoke out about the situation, denying all claims that he groped a woman. He initially called out Arizona for not investigating the matter and immediately firing him without questioning, which with rumors of that extent, I don't blame them. But it gets worse. Kugler then stated that he believes the situation was an occurrence of mistaken identity, which, when you compare Keim and Kugler side by side, it could be true. If it isn't, we all be damned. But if it is, lawsuits are coming for Arizona, and this team may be going deeper into the abyss. Countering these issues was extremely important, as with a team as dysfunctional as Arizona, you need to do as much as you can. Not every move is going to be great because of the quantity of moves needed to succeed, but it's concerning when there were no great moves. It starts with the team hiring Jonathan Gannon as head coach, and like me, many analysts disagreed with the hiring.
When I heard yesterday that Jonathan Gannon had been named head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, I just shook my head.
A lot of people did.
And then for Jonathan Gannon to Arizona, this is more of like a D+ hire. I'm going to be honest. I have some major concerns about this. It's not the direction I would have gone, especially after what we saw in the Super Bowl.
There's the message, kids. If you want to be an NFL head coach, get on a team, be a coordinator, go to the Super Bowl and lose, then you'll be a head coach.
Hiring a coach off of culture is crazy to me. We've seen many defensive coordinators fail as head coaches time and time again because while the transition is difficult, the common factors are coaching trees and team trees. I disagree with the Shane Steichen hiring almost as much because neither of the coordinators have wowed me. With Gannon as head coach, he's also brought in similar faces to him as coordinators. Starting with the positive, I do like the Nick Rallis hiring as defensive coordinator. He is very young, but he's deserved it through developing the Eagles linebackers throughout the last 2 seasons. For offensive coordinator, though, another new face to the position and Drew Pelting was added. I don't know too much about him, but looking at his history, he coached the Vikings wide receivers in 2019, which was great. Yeah, cool. Then with the Browns, tight ends coach in 2020 and 2021, where he coached the same tight ends both years and never saw production out of them. It wasn't until Pelting became the quarterbacks coach when David Njoku had his best season. And as quarterbacks coach, he did coach Jacoby Brissett to a solid season and Deshaun Watson to a worse season than we expected, but that wasn't particularly in his control. With that resume, though, I don't think it's worth it. This video is being created at a weird time as position coaches are still being hired, but it's going to depend on new general manager Monty Ossenfort to rebuild this franchise into something good. What will the team do without Kyler Murray? How is this offense going to react to the loss of Kingsbury and a somewhat unqualified offensive coordinator? And how is the defense going to react to a new culture at head coach? There's still time for Arizona to relieve themselves of the title of most dysfunctional franchise in the NFL, but for now, the 2022 situation and the team's reactions point towards no immediate recovery.